All right, so I'm going to see how I can share my screen right at this point. And let's see. Welcome to MG414. And what I'm doing is I am actually sharing with you an overview. So, um, uh, based on last semester's class, they said that this would be really helpful to share with you. So let me take a couple of minutes to do just that. So what you'll see is the different parts that we're going to have for this and some pitfalls that could happen along the way. So from start to finish, what you're really looking at doing in weeks 1 through 3 is preparing yourself for a needs assessment of a real company or a company that you make up. I found that when you're using a real company based on last semester's teams, you tend to do a little bit better with this. So I want you to think about this as you meet teams of what the company is that you're going to be doing an evaluation. I had people do banks. I had people actually do Starbucks as well. Then in weeks 4 through 6, what will come next is a mini assessment as well as your instructional design piece to this. And then the last part of the semester is where you put all the pieces together. And during the week of the end of the semester from the 24th to the 28th, in this instance for spring, you will then begin setting up a training for your partner team. All right. So from start to finish, again, just taking a look at how this looks in a different format rather than what we did before. And next, what we're going to look at is the needs assessment. So the primary purpose is really to diagnose the performance problem. What's really happening? What are they supposed to be doing? Where's the gap? And what do you need to do to close the gap for the employees to be working at the expected level? You're going to use primary Bloom's level, in other words, the taxonomy of learning. And I'm not looking for you to go boom, 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 and try and reach all. Some levels are more appropriate based on the needs or the gaps analysis, and we'll get there more specifically later. And so logic models really tend to help you with the inputs and then the outputs to see where that gap is going to be. And then, of course, I want to see clear evidence that there is a performance gap and what that actually means. Okay. What commonly will happen is that everybody jumps to solutions instead of diagnosing the actual problem. So this is a systematic kind of thing where in the real world, if you will allow me to say that, you may go back a couple of times to really adjust where the exact need is, where the exact gap is. And don't confuse opinions, which can happen when we go out and we do a needs assessment in a workplace, with the actual evidence that's coming up. And then the last one is you make it too big. The idea here is to really focus on what that gap is. Once you find the needs and the gap, you're going to justify what you've been learning up to this point in a mini case as well as the instructional design portion. Now, what you see here is the primary purpose is to give you practice and me feedback for you about how you're doing applying this. In the logic model, we're really talking about short-term outcomes, and that's what your training will be about. Most common mistakes that we're going to see here is treating it as busy work as opposed to actual practice. This tells me whether you're getting the assignments. So you're demonstrating to me being able to learn this information and then apply it through the discussion boards and then the actual application of it. Overthinking instead of applying frameworks. This is very common. We're actually seeing this in Gen AI right now, where people are just going in and they're not critically reflecting and looking at the taxonomies of what learners need, what employees need, what customers need, and then working in isolation. This class is a team class. I'm giving you a project that's so big, you need the team. That's going to lead us to the instructional design and development part. And the purpose of that is designing a solution that addresses the gap. Again, We're going to be using Bloom's taxonomy. You're going to have this logic model. This is the short-term to long-term, and the key evidence, which aligns across the objectives. So the KSAs, where are we missing in the KSAs? What methods, what assessments, what materials are you going to use? And that's when you're really going to build out a Canvas sandbox. Again, I'm going to show you more details of what was really good last semester and wasn't so good. Common mistakes that happen in the field from this: misaligned objectives, activities, too much contact, not enough focus, or not enough specific contact. You got to find that right balance of content. And then designing for Canvas. Again, we're going to work with you a little bit about that. You're really going to see what it's like from my side as an instructor and an instructional designer as well. All right. Then we get to the final piece where you are at Bloom's highest level, because you're creating, you're demonstrating it, you're evaluating it, and you are justifying why you did what you did in the way that you're doing it, solving that gap. And you're going to get a chance to actually do training. And I want you to really think about that. This semester's group didn't really get the training quite as well, and they didn't set time for the other team to actually respond to discussion questions. They didn't lead the discussions. They didn't lead seeing the knowledge gap and filling that gap. So you really want to work with that a little bit more. And feel free to call on me. I've had a few years of experience doing this. Again, the most common mistakes: trying to be perfect instead of clear. I have this problem. So what you'll notice is that I've put disclaimers about how I work with Gen AI to help me be more clear and succinct, kind of like I did with the slide deck. We're overlaying slides and materials. I want you to pay attention to how simple my slides actually are, how I'm presenting them, how I'm animating them. And then forgetting the evaluation that is about learning and not grading. And again, that was a common mistake that I saw last semester. All right, you have mandatory due dates. I need the final training and evaluation when you're going to work with your partner team by week 3. And I'll be following up with that. I get very busy and I have got to block those dates for you, and you need to block them in your calendar and give your employer as much notice as possible. I don't take kindly, for the most part, for having given you this much notice to not have that blocked out in your calendar for the 2 hours that are required. Okay. The next thing is, I want to meet with all teams and have a meeting set up by the end of week 1, just to clarify, get to meet me, make sure that there aren't any questions that I can address for the team at that time. So it's just kind of, getting to know us and figure things out. Team 3 is before the instructional design part, as well as the mini case study. And I want us to really go into what it is that you've done so far, give you feedback. So this means that you're going to be paced throughout the semester. Okay. And I think that's a wrap. All right, y'all. Take care.